How many battles have you fought today? Not the ones others can see, the wars raging inside your mind, the quiet struggles between who you are and who you could become. We live in an age of endless distractions, yet our greatest conflicts remain internal. The ancient Stoics understood this centuries ago. Our minds can be our greatest allies or our most formidable opponents. Today, we're exploring 5 toxic mindsets that silently sabotage your potential, and how the Stoic philosophers, those pragmatic warriors of the mind, would dismantle them. What makes this philosophy so powerful isn't its complexity, but its simplicity. The Stoics offer a timeless framework for mental clarity in a world designed to cloud your judgment. By the end of our journey, you'll have practical tools to recognize and transform these destructive thought patterns. And if you stay until the end, I'll share a powerful daily mindset practice used by Marcus Aurelius himself, the same ritual that helped him lead Rome through plague, war, and personal tragedy while maintaining his wisdom and composure. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Victim Mindset. Why does this always happen to me? It's not fair. The promotion goes to someone else. The relationship falls apart. The opportunity vanishes. And the narrative begins. The world is conspiring against you. You've been wronged, targeted, or simply unlucky. This is the victim mindset, perhaps the most seductive of all toxic thought patterns, because it offers immediate emotional relief. If external forces are to blame, you're absolved of responsibility. But this temporary comfort comes at an extraordinary cost. Epictetus, who was born a slave before becoming a renowned Stoic teacher, had every reason to embrace victimhood. Instead, he offered this radical perspective. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. The Stoic remedy begins with a fundamental distinction. There are things within your control and things beyond it. Your circumstances may not be your fault, but your response is always your responsibility. You are not a victim. You are the agent, the protagonist in your story, not a secondary character subjected to the whims of fate. Try this. The next time something happens to you, pause before the victim narrative takes hold. Ask yourself, what aspects of this situation are within my control? Then direct your energy exclusively toward those elements. A modern application might be what psychologists call reframing, seeing difficult situations as training rather than torture. The obstacle becomes the gymnasium where you develop mental strength. When you say, "This is happening for me, not to me," you reclaim your power from external circumstances. The Stoics would have you remember, freedom begins not when circumstances change, but when you realize you don't need perfect circumstances to take meaningful action. Chapter 2. The Comparison Trap. The social media feed scrolls by. A colleague's promotion announcement, a friend's perfect family portrait, a stranger's exotic vacation. With each image, a quiet voice whispers, "Look at what they have. Look at what you don't." We've all felt it, that sinking sensation when comparing our behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's highlight reel. But what if I told you this comparison habit isn't just unpleasant? It's actually robbing you of your life's purpose. The Stoics identified this pattern long before Instagram. Seneca, who served as advisor to Emperor Nero, understood the toxic nature of comparison. But before we explore his solution, consider this. What if the very act of comparison is fundamentally flawed? What if it's based on a profound misunderstanding of human nature? Seneca wrote, "Be your own spectator, seek your own applause." He recognized that when we measure ourselves against others, we aren't just making a simple calculation, we're betraying our unique path. Here's the Stoic insight. Comparison is future regret disguised as ambition. When you fixate on another's journey, you abandon your own. The comparison trap convinces you that value is relative rather than inherent, external rather than internal. The Stoic solution isn't simply to stop comparing. It's to recognize that every comparison is based on incomplete information. You see the results, not the struggles, the destination, not the journey. Try this exercise tonight. Take 5 minutes to write down what you genuinely value in life, not what impresses others, but what matters to you when no one is watching. Then ask, am I measuring my success against these values or against someone else's visible achievements? The Stoics would tell you that true wealth isn't measured by what you have, but by what you don't need. Your worth isn't determined by standing out, but by standing firmly on your principles. Chapter 3. Fear of failure. What if I try and it doesn't work? What if I put everything into this project, this relationship, this dream, and still fall short? What if my best simply isn't good enough? Fear of failure doesn't just prevent action, it prevents possibility. It's the unwritten stories, the unmade art, the unlived lives that haunt us most. And yet, the Stoics saw failure not as something to avoid, but as essential data on the path to wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most powerful man of his age as Emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journal, "Does what's happened keep you from acting with justice, generosity, self-control, sanity, prudence, honesty, humility, straightforwardness? Number, then get back to work." Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who famously made 1,000 unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb. When a reporter asked how it felt to fail 1,000 times, Edison replied, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps." This isn't mere positive thinking. It's a fundamental reorientation to reality. The Stoic doesn't define failure as a lack of success, but as a failure to act according to one's principles and purpose. Failure for the Stoic is essential, not disgraceful. Just as a muscle grows stronger through resistance, wisdom develops through setbacks. The Stoic builds strength through falling and rising again. Marcus Aurelius put it eloquently, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Here's a practical application. Before beginning your next important project, write down all the possible ways it might fail. Then, beside each potential failure, write what you would learn if that specific failure occurred. This transforms failure from an endpoint into a data point. Not a wall, but a doorway. The Stoic perspective isn't that you won't fail, it's that failure itself is neutral until you assign it meaning. Choose to give it the meaning of a teacher rather than a judge. Chapter 4. The need for approval. Why do I feel better only when others see me? Why does validation from others seem to matter more than my own assessment? How did my self-worth become so dependent on external approval? The need for approval might be the most human of all our psychological struggles. We are, after all, social creatures. Yet the Stoics identified this dependency as one of the primary sources of unnecessary suffering. Epictetus taught, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Don't wish to be thought to know anything, and even if you appear to be somebody important to others, distrust yourself." This isn't about becoming indifferent to others. It's about establishing the proper hierarchy of judgment. The Stoics would argue that what matters is not being praised, but being praiseworthy. Consider how much mental and emotional energy you expend wondering what others think of you. Now, imagine redirecting that energy toward becoming the person you aspire to be, regardless of recognition. Modern psychologist Carl Rogers echoed this Stoic wisdom when he wrote about the conditions of worth we internalize, the invisible rules that dictate when we're allowed to feel worthy based on external feedback. The Stoic antidote begins with a simple but profound question: would I still do this if no one ever knew? This query reveals the difference between actions driven by principle and those driven by approval. Try this practice. The next time you receive either criticism or praise, wait 24 hours before responding or making decisions based on that feedback. Use this time to evaluate the input against your own standards, rather than immediately adjusting to external opinions. Epictetus summarized it perfectly. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. When your self-worth hinges on others' approval, you forfeit the opportunity to develop genuine self-knowledge, the foundation of all wisdom. The Stoic path isn't to ignore all feedback, but to process it through the filter of your values rather than your ego. Chapter 5. The Illusion of Control. Why can't I fix this? Why won't they change? Why doesn't the world conform to my expectations? Perhaps no toxic mindset causes more unnecessary suffering than the illusion of control, our persistent belief that we should be able to control outcomes, other people, and circumstances beyond our influence. This mindset doesn't just create disappointment, it creates a perpetual state of resistance against reality itself. It's exhausting because it's impossible. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Consider the story of Admiral James Stockdale, who survived 7 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. Later, when asked about his experience, he explained that the prisoners who didn't make it were the optimists, those who kept thinking, "We'll be out by Christmas," only to have their hopes repeatedly crushed. Stockdale instead embraced what became known as the Stockdale paradox. You must maintain unwavering faith that you can prevail while simultaneously confronting the most brutal facts of your current reality. This is the Stoic balance, not toxic positivity that denies difficulties, nor resigned pessimism that surrenders to them, but clear-eyed engagement with what is, paired with decisive action on what can be changed. The obstacle is the way. Control is internal. Peace comes not from having control, but from focusing your energy exclusively on your sphere of influence. A modern application might be the practice of boundary setting, not as a way of controlling others, but as a clear delineation of what is and isn't within your authority. You can't control whether someone respects your boundary, but you can control how you respond when they don't. As Marcus Aurelius advised, accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. In chaos, the Stoic finds clarity not by controlling external events, but by mastering internal responses. When the illusion of control dissolves, authentic power emerges. We've traveled from victimhood to agency, from comparison to self-knowledge, from fear of failure to embracing lessons, from needing approval to standing on principle, from the illusion of control to the reality of influence. These 5 toxic mindsets aren't just psychological obstacles, they're invitations to practice what the Stoics called the art of living. Each challenge offers an opportunity to strengthen your most important relationship, the one with your own mind. As promised, here's the morning practice Marcus Aurelius used to prepare his mind each day. The same ritual documented in his private journals that we now know as meditations. Each morning, before engaging with the world, ask yourself these 3 questions. What qualities do I need to meet today's challenges with wisdom? Patience, courage, compassion. What potential obstacles might I face, and how will I respond to them with virtue? What is genuinely within my control today, and what must I accept as beyond my influence? This practice takes just minutes, but transforms hours. It doesn't prevent difficulties. It prepares you to meet them with clarity and purpose. The Stoics knew that philosophy isn't about escaping life's hardships, but about developing the inner resources to transform them into wisdom. If this perspective has helped you, share it with someone who might need it. After all, as Seneca wrote, "When we teach, we learn." Until next time, remember, the quality of your life depends far less on what happens to you than on how you respond to what happens.